We are talking Special Delivery. This is a Korean movie and it's an exciting mix of Lone Wolf and Cub and the Transporter. So what is the story here? So it focuses on this woman who is kind of a getaway driver. If you've seen The Transporter, she's kind of like that really. It's just kind of a smuggler. She'll transport anything or anyone from one place to another, normally obviously illegally, for a price. And she kind of works for this kind of rinky-dink kind of criminal organisation. And this particular kind of case, she's tasked picking up this this guy and his young son, because this guy has got some underworld dealings that he's trying to get away from. Inevitably things go slightly wrong and she ends up having to kind of look after this kid pursued by shady underworld types, and has to kind of keep him safe, all the while kind of having this kind of bond with him. What'll happen? You'll have to watch the movie to find out. So this being a Korean movie, Special Delivery is obviously the kind of English language name. I'm not going to try and pronounce the Korean name nor any of the cast or director or anyone involved in it, because it'll just be a disaster. So what can we say that works in this movie? So this is a pretty slickly produced kind of action movie. It follows very kind of similar kind of tropes that you've kind of seen before, and I am going to talk about that a little bit more in a little bit. But yeah, it's a very well made movie with some real kind of slickly produced kind of action sequences, and obviously because it's essentially a vehicular kind of based action movie, there are some fantastic kind of stunt work and kind of chase sequences as well, where our female protagonist, her speciality is kind of stunts and kind of fancy driving. So we get lots of kind of exciting set pieces involving vehicular kind of combat and exciting escapes and chase sequences and things like that. I have to say as well, this lead actress is actually quite a likeable kind of character, and I think they give her an interesting kind of backstory. We learn that she's actually a North Korean defector. Not that that really kind of affects much of the story, but it's somewhat of an interesting kind of backstory for this particular character to have. And I think the actress does a good job of making this character seem vulnerable, but also kind of capable and quite charismatic as well. And I have to say, I enjoyed the kind of the relationship between her and this kind of young boy. Obviously they're kind of this bond growing as the kind of the movie progresses. There are some kind of fun side characters. We're introduced to this kind of like for instance, this kind of professional kind of like hitman who is kind of tasked with going out in trying to kind of like find her, and he's kind of overly kind of brutal. Just for example, he hasn't got a huge amount of screen time, but I kind of like the character. There's this, it has a fairly kind of large cast, and the scope of it is quite large as well. There's lots of kind of like actions in different kind of locations and things like that. So it does seem like it has a kind of high production value. It's been likened to kind of Fast and Furious, and I can understand the comparison there, but it's more like Transporter, if you know the Jason Statham movie. Now this actually is quite brutal. I mean, it's not like excessively brutal or gory like a proper kind of like super violent kind of Asian movie that you sometimes get. But I was surprised at some of the kind of the brutal kind of fight sequences here, and the level of violence was slightly kind of like a little bit more brutal than I was necessarily expecting. I suppose when you're watching things like the Fast and the Furious, it's made for a kind of a PG kind of 13 style audience, and that's kind of what I was expecting with this. But it goes one step further and actually has a little bit more kind of brutality, a little bit more kind of violence in the movie than I was currently expecting. So if you want a more violent version of a Fast and Furious style movie, then this may well be the one for you. So let's talk about what doesn't work. Here is the main problem with this movie. It is so predictable. The story offers literally zero surprises, and we've seen this kind of style of movie now many times before. Obviously the kind of the original Lone Wolf and Cub, I guess, is the one that started this particular kind of story, and they say that there's only kind of 7 or so stories that you can possibly tell. We always see adaptations of Jimbo or Magnificent Seven, Most Dangerous Game, and we always have these kind of like these modern takes of these kind of classic stories, and this is essentially Lone Wolf and Cub. And we've seen, you know, Leon, we've had the Extraction movie, we've had the Mandalorian, all of which is kind of followed this kind of very kind of familiar ground. So this movie really offers nothing new to that kind of genre. It's well made and kind of like, you know, an exciting film. But story-wise, it is so predictable. I mean, you can literally kind of predict any type of sequence of what's going to happen with kind of particular kind of characters in this movie. It really doesn't try and do anything new with this kind of this particular kind of story elements, and thus it becomes a little bit cliched. Let's just say that. I have to say as well, I think this movie has some kind of it stretched logic problems. Now, if you watch obviously the kind of the Fast and Furious movies, you can say that obviously that is a complete disregard for physics. And I'm not kind of talking really like that, but this to me had some kind of like some elements of the story where it kind of didn't really make a lot of sense, and just things just seemed to happen for convenience. I'll give you one example. There's a sequence in a multi-story car park where our protagonist is trying to rescue this young boy who's in a kind of a bad guy's car. So she puts on the, she sets fire to something and puts on the sprinkler system, and this causes the car to sort of lose control and kind of skid and crash. And I was like, cars are designed to work in the rain. I don't understand why a sprinkler system is going to make a car kind of lose control and stuff. Then sequences later, everyone else is driving fine in it. It just, you know, it needed to happen for the point of this particular kind of sequence. So yeah, there's some kind of logic issues here that happen in the movie. I'm not going to go through all of them, but that's just one example. It seemed to me that, you know, things just happened for the sake of happening. I have to say as well, our kind of antagonists I thought were a little bit poorly defined. It took me a while to realise what was actually kind of going on with them and who they actually were. I think it could have done a better job kind of setting up our antagonistic forces. I just feel it kind of went straight into them without really kind of like much kind of like backstory about who they were or what actually had gone on. It kind of makes sense as the story progresses, but it kind of took me a while to think, I don't know who these people are or what they're kind of what the jig is, so to speak. Overall though, this is a very well produced and you know, fun movie to watch. It's very slick, looks great. On a technical level, this is a very, very proficiently made movie, and I think if you're a fan of movies like Fast and the Furious, like The Transporter, you're going to enjoy it. So it's a 6 out of 10 for me. Have you seen it? What did you think of it? Leave me a comment and I shall look forward to seeing you next time. Bye for now.